Bona tarda.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this event on the Catalonia's S3 in action shared agendas explained by their key stakeholders. It's now my pleasure to invite Natàlia, the Regional Minister of Economy and Finance of the Generalitat, the Government of Catalonia, to take the floor.
Bé, molt bona tarda.
A very good afternoon to you all. Mr. Joan Tolan, President of the Lleida Provincial Council, Miquel, President of the Chamber of Commerce of Lleida, colleagues from the Department of Economy and Finance, and colleagues from different European institutions. It's a very big pleasure to welcome you all here. A very good afternoon to you all. This afternoon, it's a real pleasure to see so many colleagues from all across Catalonia and Europe so that we can share with you our cutting-edge transformative approaches adopted in Catalonia's Smart Specialisation strategy, our S3 strategy. This is promoted by the Government of Catalonia and the Department of Economy and Finance. I'd also like to very warmly thank everyone who has joined us from all across Europe. Yesterday, you were here for the S3 Forum, and today you're joining us to discover Catalonia's S3 strategy and our shared agendas firsthand. It's also a pleasure to welcome people who have come from all across Catalonia, people who have and continue to participate in our S3 actions. And I'm pleased to see representatives of the Lleida and Bages regions who will be sharing with us their challenges, rural depopulation, aging. I like to frame it as increasing lifespan that we're seeing all across Catalonia. And also, I'd like to welcome Tatiana Fernandez and her entire team from the Economic Strategy Department. Thank you very much for hosting and organizing this event, and thank you for your tireless efforts over many, many years, and your work in heading up our Smart Specialisation strategy. When the EU first launched Smart Specialisation strategies a decade ago, Catalonia quickly signed on. We believed that this strategy would promote collaboration between public administrations, academia, businesses, and civil society, allowing us to tackle major shared challenges we face. Now we're talking about transformative agendas, agendas that use knowledge and innovation as drivers, ones that try to drive green, digital, fair transformations. In line with the EU's requirements for states and regions, the Government of Catalonia has aimed to set up a four-plank strategy. First, prioritizing research and innovation, and I think this is very important, doing so based on our strengths, focusing especially on regional challenges. Second, promoting policies which help us to promote decarbonization and move towards a more circular economy. Of course, this calls for long-term investment, capacity building for new professionals, ensuring that our research and innovation system can meet our needs. This is one of the government's key aims, to move towards a net zero emissions economy. And that's why it's so important to develop new business models, new value chains. Value shouldn't just be economic, but also social and environmental. And in today's sessions, we'll talk about the bioeconomy, alternative proteins, the care economy, and our natural capital, restoring biodiversity, forests, rivers, and moving towards a human and nature-centered economy. Third, The debate we're having today about smart specialization calls for international cooperation. All European regions have shared challenges: climate change, aging populations, and challenges to value chains due to geopolitical events and conflict. We're hearing about food and energy sovereignty, technological and industrial sovereignty on the European stage, and we think this will only be possible based on closely knit interregional collaboration, allowing European regions and countries to align and pool our efforts. And international institutions, European institutions like the European Commission, the OECD, and the UN will be key to ensure that we can work together and roll out these necessary transformations and share lessons learned. This has always been clear to us in Catalonia. For many years, we've seen many Catalonian stakeholders participating in European projects, and through our S3 project, the Government of Catalonia collaborates with the European Commission's JRC, the S3 Forum, and indeed we have a partnership agreement which is allowing us to accelerate the transition towards a sustainable mobility system. I'd also like to underscore our close ties with the TIPSI, the Transformative Innovation Policy Consortium. These close ties are between public administrations and academia, and we think that this is key for our work. Last but not least, smart specialization strategies call for a new type of leadership, shared place-based leadership. This allows us to tackle the challenges we face in our towns, cities, and ecosystems. It allows us to focus on more effective responses to the challenges we face, socioeconomic, environmental, in our regions. And these are complicated challenges. Technology, expert knowledge, and public policy are not enough. As we've heard from Tatiana and her team, we need to have systemic, multi-perspective approaches, and we need to focus on the long term to build new approaches so we move in the right direction, as supported by the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, to do so, smart specialization strategies, as we said, allow us to use entrepreneurial discovery processes and to lay the groundwork for the path forward. By way of conclusion, smart specialization strategies call for us to prioritize research and innovation to ensure that we can build on our possibilities in the region to promote international cooperation, and I said, build this new team-based leadership from the ground up. Let's also not lose sight of one key factor needed to implement these strategies. We need to mobilize financial capital and public and private investment to support infrastructure, capacity building, and to push forward new projects. In conclusion, you're all afternoon just to share with you what we've been doing with our smart specialization strategies, which were adopted by our government in December 2022. Our aim is to promote and step up these transformations to have a greener, more digital, more resilient, fairer socioeconomic model. These in public policy and our very way of life. Or, to craft missions that align the visions and pull together all involved stakeholders. Now, as I said before, we call these missions shared agendas here in Catalonia. How do they work? Well, we jointly identify challenges and pledge to tackle them in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. Today we'll hear about two tangible examples of these shared agendas, so I won't go into too much detail right now. But we do need to mobilize local stakeholders to promote these collaborative strategies. And as I said before, this isn't easy. We really need to truly understand all challenges and opportunities stemming from them, both on the local and global stages. This will also allow us to understand the needs and interests and positions of various stakeholders. Given that there's always winners and losers in every transformation, we need to make sure that we can handle uncertainty and avoid any hurdles, and on a case-by-case basis, adopt remedies based on social justice. Hence, I think there's one other key approach in our work. We've always thought it was essential to build new capacity and develop new professional profiles, not only in the public administration, in universities, in research and technology centers, but also, this is really at the crux of our Smart Specialization strategy. So, we've always aimed to bolster our abilities to ensure transformation at the university level with our Knowledge Regions program. Perhaps we have some colleagues from universities here, and in the MDO, the Discovery Process Mechanism at the government level. So, if you're interested in delving into the details of this strategy, after today's session, I'd invite you to take a look at our website.
Us convido.
As I was saying, I'd invite you to take a look at our website. This is fondseuropeo.gencat.cat, and you can find quite a few different resources there, including resources available in English. In conclusion, thank you very much for your tireless work, for your commitment, for the added value in your work at the local and regional and territorial level, for everyone that's part of this shared European project. Today we celebrate our accomplishments, we highlight them, and we build on this opportunity to share our knowledge and lay out our future work program. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Moltes gràcies, consellera.
Thank you very much, Minister. Now it's my pleasure to invite Miquel Puig, the Secretary for Economic Affairs and European Funds at the Generalitat, the Government of Catalonia.
Molt bé. Bona tarda a tothom.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to join you for this session with so many people coming from so many places, working jointly with European funds. Now, I'll share some very personal thoughts on European funds. At the end of the day, European funds are taxpayer money coming back to our public administrations, the ones that collected these funds. So I think it's necessary for us to explain why it's important for this money to come back. So they go from member states to the EU and then from the EU back to member states. This is especially important in a region like ours, which pays in more than it receives. Personally speaking, I think that European funds are tied to establishing priorities. Priorities on the European level, which are justified because the EU sets out strategic priorities for the European Union. For example, tackling climate change, our industry developing computer chips, which obviously need to be addressed at the EU level. So it makes sense for the EU to collect funds and then say that you can use these provided you meet these aims. But in other cases, like the one we're discussing today, the EU does not set out these priorities. Member states are the ones that establish these aims, and in our S3 strategy, the EU tells us to establish our own aims. Now, why does the EU tell member states, well, you sent us money before, and now you need to spend that money on aims that you identify? I think that there's a reason for this, and that's because we're seeing a major paradigm shift. We all know just how challenging it is to change policy when these broader changes take place. And that's because it's hard for us to take stock of the fact that objectives and circumstances have changed. There's also pressure from groups that were favored by some policies, and they are resistant to change. So I think it's useful for the EU to tell us, well, you need to change your aims because of this major paradigm shift. Now, what is this paradigm shift? Quite simply, we are moving from a three-pronged approach. First, offshoring. Secondly, baby boomers who are entering the job market, and growing emergence of robots and other technology. And if you look at these three prongs, well, that's a recipe for job losses. And therefore, it's perfectly natural that we spent 5 decades obsessed with creating policies that would lead to more jobs. Anything that creates jobs is a good thing, and if it doesn't, well, that's a bad thing. In short, jobs, jobs, jobs. But things are different now. If we pick up on this three-pronged approach, well, now our three prongs are, first, European technological sovereignty and strategic autonomy. In other words, we want reindustrialization here in Europe. We want to produce strategic products, starting with food. Secondly, now baby boomers are retiring, and their children, and there's fewer people on the job market now, are stepping into their shoes. So we have more people leaving the labor market than entering the labor market, and hence we need many care workers. And the third plank is significant investment to build the infrastructure we'll need to produce renewable energy. In the long term, this will be quite cheap, but right now we need significant investment. And in short, this is a recipe for a lack of workers. No matter how much AI there might be, we're going to need more workers. And our policies, therefore, must adopt a radical shift. One example. In Catalonia, we have a very significant livestock and meat production industry. For decades, we've been trying to handle waste, which has led to pollution in our soil, water, and suddenly, those working in the livestock industry are seeing that this waste shouldn't be a problem. It should be seen as an opportunity so we can produce biofuel, which the aviation industry will need, because our planes need to keep flying, but they shouldn't be contributing to climate change. So the only solution is this type of renewable biofuel, and this can come inter alia from waste from the agri-food industry. So we're turning a problem into an opportunity, and that's something that we will take a closer look at over the course of this afternoon. So we could say that European funds help us to rethink, indeed force us to rethink our aims, to carefully determine what they are and determine how we will tackle them. And as for our S3 strategy, the EU isn't only saying rethink your aims, but it's telling us how to rethink these aims. And it says rethink your aims by building consensus in regions, public administration, university, among civil society, and so on and so forth. So build consensus around these new aims. Now, how do you build consensus? That takes time and that takes effort. But in the long run, this is more efficient. It's said that in Africa, I'm not sure if this is true, but it's said that if you want to move quickly, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So in the long run, if we want to go further, and we want to do so in a more fair way, we need to do so together by carefully listening to all stakeholders' voices. Then we make sure that those who would be harmed, well, their voices are also heard. When we look at climate change, we hear the irate voices of some people. Think of the Yellow Vests movement in France, and they said, well, my very way of life is being threatened by your efforts to target climate change. And it doesn't harm others as much as it harms me. Well, we need to listen to all of these people, the people most affected by this. So the minister already shared this with you, but I will reiterate my thanks to Tatiana and her team. Thank you for your energy and enthusiasm, which are really helping us to respond to the EU's call to rethink our aims by building consensus. Thank you.
Gràcies, secretari.
Thank you.
And Munch, Deputy Director from the unit responsible for Smart Specialisation in DG REGIO. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Minister, Secretary General, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. We are now in the last quarter of this 2 days conference, which was absolutely exciting. The community of regional innovators met for the first time since a long time. It was a fantastic turnout. We had interesting discussions, and there was intensive networking. And this is the point where I would like to thank you and the whole Generalitat de Catalunya for your hospitality and your engagement to make this conference a success. Many thanks. The conference evidenced the need for a place-based innovation policy. This is what cohesion policy is. It is a place-based policy. It is a policy for all, the first in the class as well as those pupils which still need a little bit of help. It is building the foundations, and for the stronger, it is strengthening the existing foundations. And this is important for innovation. So this policy is for all. It is building synergies to tap on further funding. For example, you build excellence, you become competitive, and then you can tap other funding sources like Horizon successfully, and then you are suddenly among the first of the innovators. We also strengthen institutional capacity, and we are mobilizing regional stakeholders, and we try to involve all stakeholders. For the Friends of Cohesion Policy, we call it multi-level governance, but in principle it is just everybody should be involved. Innovation needs cooperation inside the region and with partners all over Europe. We can't stay on our own. We need to extend our horizon. And this is also what we do. We encourage and support such cooperation in many ways and with many instruments. We have Interreg, we have I3, we have EIE, all these nice Commission jargon. But it is basically funding opportunities for you, other opportunities to network and to do things like this community of practice, which this time met in Barcelona. And I can only appeal to you, please use these opportunities. It will open your mind and open your universe. Innovation is the foundation of productivity and competitiveness. We are living now in a world that is fastly changing. And in order to keep our wealth and our welfare, we need to be innovative. We have a lot of challenges ahead of us, and the Secretary General named them all. We have climate change, we have the effects of an aging society in Europe. We need to restructure our supply chains. We need to become more resilient. And innovation here helps again. Place-based innovation helps all those actors which need to work on it and need to change and adapt. They can do it in this concept. And I'm particularly glad to be here because Catalonia is a front runner in innovation in Spain and beyond. As a strong region, our place-based innovation policy gives you the possibility to grow even stronger by backing up crucial choices in your innovation strategies with funding from the ERDF and the ESF, as well as all other sources you have at your disposal. Catalonia is an important partner in many cooperations on innovation. I encourage you to continue strongly on this way. Therefore, I'm glad that you agreed to showcase Catalonia and your innovation strategy as part of this conference, because it's always good to see an example, and then it's also for every one of you a good opportunity to network beyond your region. Thank you very much.
Elisabetta Marinelli, Fernando Merida, if you could please join us.
Bona tarda.
Good afternoon. It is a pleasure for us to have Elisabetta Marinelli with us. She's coming from Technopolis. She's one of the people in charge of the community of practice, the S3 COP, and the organization of this forum. Thank you so much, Elisabetta. Without you, we couldn't have had this successful event. Elisabetta has a long-standing experience in the field of European policies, and particularly in S3, in Smart Specialisation strategies. She's been working for 9 years at the European Commission, and there's no need to introduce her because many of you are already acquainted with her. We have Fernando Mérida with us, who is right now at the cabinet of the Secretary General for Innovation of the Spanish government. Again, very long-standing experience in this ministry, science and innovation, and you were working at the European Commission for 6 years. He has recently joined the Spanish ministry, and you already know him. So we have about 15 to 20 minutes in order to share some thoughts, and that's what I would like to invite our two speakers to do, on how to build regional research and innovation systems in order to face the social and environmental challenges of our societies and to contribute to speed up the green, digital, and fair transitions or transformations. As we know, most R&D systems of the European regions have as a goal to create new knowledge, to develop new technologies, and to transfer the knowledge in order to improve competitiveness, the productivity of our businesses and our economies. But as we have seen in these past few days, and as it has been explained already, the S3 strategies aim to contribute or to speed up these transitions towards sustainability. What does that mean? Well, we need to change the way we produce and consume both goods and services. Therefore, we need deep transformations that are quite radical, one might think, in terms of our way of life, how we move around, the kind of food that we consume, our leisure time. And obviously, we have AI at our disposal. We have lots of different technologies or technological solutions, which in theory could solve many of our problems. However, the problem is that these so-called technological solutions are not being implemented for many different reasons. Some of them have already been explained. As we all know, adopting innovations is not a linear process. Also, when they come hand in hand with great changes in our lives, well, they're frowned upon, which is why the S3 underlines the need to get all different stakeholders on board as part of these processes in order to really understand our challenges, because if we don't really grasp what these challenges are, we don't think, well, they're talking to us, they're speaking to us. We need to experiment and to try out different solutions, because when we're talking about transitions, social innovation is as important as technological transformation. So we could say that one of the biggest challenges of the S3 strategy, which has been discussed both yesterday and today, is how we can develop these regional R&D systems in order to face these social and environmental challenges and to speed up transformations. There are a lot of academic reports and EU documents that point out that all of these systems require infrastructures. They require innovation networks that allow us to juggle this technological innovation with social and institutional changes. Therefore, it is extremely important for these research and development systems to acknowledge the significant role to be played by public administrations and citizens at large as innovation agents, because they need to be part of the solution as well. Needless to say, together with businesses and knowledge thinkers. So against this backdrop, Elisabetta, I would like to ask you, in your experience, can you tell us to what extent the entrepreneurial discovery processes that are promoted by the smart specialization strategies allow regions to set up these multiplayer networks? And more specifically, could you tell us what the main challenges and opportunities are, not only for the most developed regions, but also for the so-called lagging regions, because ultimately challenges might be similar, but approaches may differ. Thank you, Tatiana. It is a pleasure for me to be here. I would like to thank the Catalan government for having invited me. Now, regarding your question, it is not easy, mind you. And my answer will be based on a historic perspective about the development of S3 policies. Since its very beginning, it was based on the notion of entrepreneurial discovery process, or EDP. What does this term mean? At the time, it was quite confusing, and it had to be explained by European institutions in order to set this whole process in motion. Now, in simple terms, in order to grow, in order to innovate, we need to talk, we need to speak with people, with the territory itself. Now, this discovery process used to involve three types of stakeholders: public stakeholders, businesses, and universities. Now, from a European viewpoint, this was an important exercise. In Catalonia, we have this tradition of sharing resources, how to design public policies with stakeholders from across Catalonia. But at the time, it was a sea change in many European countries. And I would go as far as to say that probably this has been the main reason for success. This is one of our goals at S3, to convey that innovation processes, in general terms, are territory-based. So everyone in the same place must be involved when articulating them. However, there has been an interesting development in terms of this notion. And I've been privileged enough, I've had the opportunity to witness how this idea grew in Europe and how Catalonia adopted its own way of implementing it. There were very interesting dynamics. I was working at the Joint Research Center in Seville at the time, and I had an opportunity to collaborate with Tatiana regularly. So this place-based collaboration at first was focusing on the design of the strategy. But needless to say, it became apparent from the get-go that this was not enough. So at the time, when we were in Seville, we detected that people here in Catalonia had already taken a step forward. They had already found tools and instruments for the communities of practice that we believed were helpful in order to make headway with this EDP notion. It was no longer a question of speaking about what we wanted to contribute, what our vision was, but how to do that in time with thinking about the near future. So this concept for us was quite a key in order to understand how we should move forward and how this entrepreneurial discovery notion had to evolve. Okay, that said, I believe that we have moved forward. At the beginning, this entrepreneurial discovery was an idea that was linked to economic development. We wanted this discovery because we wanted to grow, because we go through a very harsh economic financial crisis. We have universities, we have businesses with great potential, but we are not seeing the fruits of that potential yet. However, many things have happened. We went through the pandemic and another crisis and everything that happened afterwards. So this has changed. It's no longer about the economy alone. It's about society. And we can remember in 2020, our hope was innovation. Our hope was the vaccine and social innovation, the organization of our healthcare systems that had to face a situation that was completely unprecedented. So against this backdrop, I believe that Catalonia has shown the way, and they have moved forward conceptually and practically as well. They're very inspired. It's an inspiration for many people working with S3. The discovery is no longer only for the economy in order to create wealth. It's a different kind of discovery. It organizes, it addresses societal issues. So it also identifies opportunities, which in turn generate more wealth. So I believe that the potential of this concept for European regions is huge. Even though we're using similar terms, it's like having two parallel lines very close to one another. But then one of them deviates slightly. At first, the difference might be small, but if you wait long enough, you will see that they generate completely different dynamics. Because speaking about problems or issues, that's just the first step to find solutions. But then, when we talk about the big global challenges, aging societies, the climate change, it is fundamental to be able to articulate this at a local level. But climate change will not generate the same kind of problems in a mountainous region or compared to coastal regions. So you will get floods or drought depending on where you are. So the actors in the territory are the ones best placed to express what their problems are, how they're facing them, and then find solutions and opportunities that must be anchored to the territory based on the place, but with a much greater view because we're talking about global problems. I think that's it. I used up my time. I could keep going on. I could go on, but I know that I speak too much, so I think I'll force myself to shut up. Thank you. Thank you, Elisabetta. Very kind. Fernando, on to you. We're going to ask you the same question based on your experience working at the European Commission and the work you've done with smart villages and rural areas. So we'd like you to tell us a bit more about the significance of place-based innovation. Oftentimes we've had an opportunity to debate about how regions and territories might feel tempted to just copycat solutions that have been successful in other areas, such as the famous best practices. However, we know that these magical solutions, when implemented, are not always equally successful because every solution must be based on the particularities of every region. That said, we shouldn't reinvent the wheel over and over again because at the end of the day, these societal and environmental challenges are shared by many territories. So international collaboration is key in order to understand that these problems are being tackled one way or another in all regions. And we need to find inspiration, but not to reinvent our solutions every single time. So here's my question. How should regions address this place-based innovation in order to experiment and develop solutions that are adapted to the preferences and the needs of the region? But by the same token, that kind of innovation must be connected and fed by solutions developed in other regions. Thank you, Tatiana, for such a simple question. Now, if I attempted to summarize what the regional minister, the Secretary General, Elisabetta, and you have already said, I think that would explain it all. Throughout the years, as Elisabetta was pointing out, we have seen how things have evolved. This smart specialization was a policy based on the experience of every territory, but this has changed. We have made headway in terms of how we understand this, and we realized that any approach we might give to a problem located in our own region must be based on exhaustive knowledge about the issue at hand. I've always felt uneasy whenever a recommendation or a piece of advice is given by an administration that is up above in the echelon to the local stakeholders, who are the ones that really know the reality. And it's the only possibility to be successful. You need to talk to the people in the field. The farther away you are, the less you know about it, which means that even if you might have solutions from far away, you need to have real-life knowledge from the stakeholders that experience it every day. And this is what Elizabeth and